Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I am Oshiomhole here in Abuja. Let's begin by telling you what the president said after the Jumat prayers today in Abuja. The president has told Nigerians to continue to work hard and pray hard for the peace and stability of the nation. In an interview with reporters after the special Jumat prayer session for the nation and commemoration of his birthday in the National Mosque, the president thanked God for the grace of seeing his 73rd birthday. President Tinubu says the safety and welfare of citizens remain uppermost on his mind and prayer list. President Tinubu says his watchword remains hard work and hard prayers. Take a listen to him.
Feel good, feel happy, and give thanks to Almighty Allah that has protected us so far and continue to answer our prayers, accept our ibadah. That is key and very important to all of us. A prayer for our country to stabilize, keep in peace, and safeguard our people, all the citizens. Well, the word for all of this is hard work. You work harder, you pray harder. And that's the inspiration that I got from all of this. We thank God Almighty that at this stage.
President Bola Tinubu earlier today after the special Juma prayer in Abuja. Well, so much to talk about as always on this program. But before we get talking, let's serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, has expressed confidence that Kano State remains a stronghold for the All Progressives Congress APC ahead of the 2027 general elections, attributing this to the strategic influence of Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin, APC National Chairman Abdullahi Ganduje, and Special Advisor to the President on Senate Matters, Senator Bashir Lado. During a visit to the Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on National Assembly Senate Matters, Senator Lado, in his office at the National Assembly, Senator Akpabio commended him for ensuring seamless and confidential communication between the executive and the Senate, describing his performance as unprecedented.
Sometime last year, President Bola Tinubu decided to make a change and bring in the new Senator Lado, Joanne, from the all-important state of Kano. This officer knew it was not just a mere appointment, it was an indication of the fact that the president is very ready to take over Kano.
The Vice President of the Republic of Zambia, Mrs. Mutale Nalumango, has commended the Lagos State Governor, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, for his administration's commitment to human capital development. Vice President Nalumango, who was accompanied by top government officials from Zambia, spoke during a courtesy visit to Governor Sanwo-Olu at the Lagos State House, Marina. She also praised Governor Sanwo-Olu for ensuring women's inclusion in his government. From Imo State, Governor Hope Uzodinma has presented the staff of office to 66 traditional rulers from different autonomous communities in the state. During the presentation at the Government House in Owerri, the governor charged the traditional rulers to conduct their affairs in honesty and justice and ensure that they bring peace to the community, thereby supporting the government in tackling all perpetrators of insecurity in their various communities.
You are not in competition with your councillor. You are not in competition with your local government chairman. You are recognized to support them to make sure there is law and order maintained in our communities.
The Benue State House of Assembly has passed a resolution to approach the Supreme Court of Nigeria for interpretation of Section 292 as it pertains to the removal of a chief judge following the National Judicial Council's intervention halting the removal of Justice Maurice Ikpembese. The House took the decision during the plenary presided by the Speaker, Hyacinth Dajo, after securing a two-thirds majority on the 18th of February 2025 in support of the recommendation to remove Justice Maurice Ikpembese. The exercise is still pending. The coalition of Anambra South Progressives, comprising members from APGA, APC, PDP, and the Labour Party have decried the void created by the death of Senator Ifeanyi Ubah in the state. They're calling for a replacement that should come from Nnewi North. A former PDP Deputy National Chairman, member of the Board of Trustees, and former Senator, Senator Suleiman Nazif, has resigned and exited the party today. In a letter addressed to the party's ward chairman in Gamawa in Bauchi State, the former federal lawmaker says his decision to leave the PDP is in response to the admonition of the people whose voices he says he values and respects. Senator Nazif, who served as the chairman of the Senate Committee on INEC in the 8th Senate, has now declared his interest to join the Social Democratic Party, SDP.
There you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. So we're digging deeper tonight on some of the heated debates that we saw on the floor of the Senate. The Senate yesterday threw out, again, prayers containing a motion seeking to rename the Independent National Electoral Commission headquarters after the former chairman of the defunct National Electoral Commission, NEC, Professor Humphrey Nwosu. The motion was re-sponsored by Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe after lawmakers threw it out on Wednesday. Senator Abaribe called for posthumous national honors to be conferred on Nwosu in recognition of his role in Nigeria's democratic evolution. Professor Nwosu was the one who oversaw the June 12, 1993 presidential election, which was later annulled by the IBB military junta. Let me remind you of what happened in the first place on Wednesday, how the debate went on the floor of the Senate. This was Wednesday. Then I will let you see what happened yesterday on Thursday. We'll make sense of what this means, especially for those who see the Nigeria's political history from different prism, either from the Southeast prism, Professor Humphrey Nwosu prism, or those who are in the Southwest who sees it from the MK Abiola prism, or those who think that in the struggle to uphold the 1993 presidential election result, some people have lost their lives, and that those who participated in it were not worthy, or some of those characters are not worthy of a national honor. But let me remind you of what happened on Wednesday. Take a listen.
This matter is a motion to immortalize the architect of June 12, Professor Humphrey Nwosu. And I'm not the only sponsor. This is also sponsored by other senators, Senator Abamoro, Senator Joseph Carlo, Senator.
Distinguished colleagues, my point of order is pursuant to Order 41, Sub 3 of our rules. And with your permission, sir, I will read. 41.3. A senator moving a motion under combined orders 41 and 51 shall ensure that copies of the motion are available for all senators when approval to move the motion is granted.
I don't see, what is the reason?
Don't tell me that. I don't know, my brother. I don't know.
My distinguished colleagues, of course, this motion is very, very controversial. But when in democracy, we allow our colleagues to table their views, and it's left for the Senate to decide on what to be done on such views. Others see him as someone. Anyway, you move your motion. Okay, my colleagues, can you please listen? Can you please listen? Now it's up to you. I'll put the question, and I'll walk in line with whatever you decide. Of course, it's a bit controversial, Some see him as someone who truncated June 12. Some see him as a hero of June 12. So it's up to you. We'll put the question. Those in favor that this motion should go through, please say aye. Those against, say nay. The nays have it.
The fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator David Jim Kuta on the Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria.
That was how it all went down on Wednesday. Unhappy Senator Abaribe and some of his colleagues took a walk out of the chambers. But on Thursday, it does look like the fate of that motion again was a nullity. Let me refresh your mind on what happened yesterday on the floor.
Courageous defense of democratic electoral process during the 1993 presidential elections led to the famous June 12, which ultimately confirmed Alhaji MKO Abiola as the winner of the election. Further aware that he stood his ground, ensuring that the Nigerians' electoral wishes and aspirations were realized, which culminated in June 12 being marked as the authentic democratic day.
When we met with the late General Sani Abacha, he said the reason he decided to order the detention of MKO Abiola was that MKO Abiola proclaimed himself as the winner of the election and therefore as president. It was on that basis Abiola was arrested and he died in detention. If Professor Nwosu had the courage, I emphasize courage as is being suggested here, to announce the winner and damn the consequences. After all, he who is not ready to die for something will end up dying for nothing. We cannot distort history in this Senate.
And I also want to remind us that Humphrey Nwosu was the chairman during a military regime. There was no way he would have announced a result with a gun placed on his head.
And that we're even discussing this brings back the pain of the loss of an illustrious Nigerian from Ogun Central Senatorial District. To attempt to immortalize or honor anyone who was involved with the annulment of June 12 that led to the death of MK Abiola is to undermine the insufficient recognition that has been given to him. It is indeed to also set a very bad precedent.
To stay here and not acknowledge that Humphrey was a fighter who stood his grounds against the military leadership to ensure that democracy was enthroned is most uncharitable.
All right, then, let's get a deeper understanding and perspectives into this. We've had perspectives on those who think that Humphrey Nwosu should be so honored. But tonight, one of the senators who spoke on the floor, perhaps just about that time, he was one of those on the streets carrying placards, but now he's in the Senate. He's a former NLC president, a former governor of Edo State and sitting senator, Senator Adams Oshiomhole, who is live for us here in our studio. You were vehement. Good evening, Senator, and thank you for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much indeed. You were very vehement about your debate, and you do not think that Humphrey Nwosu deserves a posthumous honor. And I've read and I've had conversation with Professor Humphrey Nwosu. He told me that it was a difficult kettle of fish dealing with the military. And you understand better because you were president of the NLC when the military was...
I was a deputy.
Oh, deputy, yeah. When the military was...
One of the two deputies.
At that time. And you understand what it means to have a voice in the military regime. In fact, Tony Ojukwu, who is the chair of the Nigerian Human Rights, Executive Secretary of the Human Rights Commission, was one of those in the book written by Professor Humphrey Nwosu said that there was a suit stopping the election 35 hours before the election, stopping the election. There were a lot of difficulties, as explained to me by Professor Humphrey Nwosu when he was alive. But you do not think that those were enough to immortalize him?
No, well, let me be clear. It is not to put fair on a good day to begin to discuss about someone who is not now in a position to reply or to explain himself. So, in a sense, it is with heavy heart that one wants to go into a matter like this. But tradition, they say you don't speak ill of the dead. And I think Nwosu, like every other Nigerian, his memory deserves to be respected. However, my challenge is this. We all function under the military. And I want to remind you, Shehu, that some of your colleagues in the print media, I still remember a guy called Malaulu. He was convicted for ancestors, was it a life imprisonment or death?
Yeah.
For plotting a coup with his pen. Because he wrote an article which the military said was part of the accessory after the fact of a coup. So everybody bore different level of risk. But my point is that don't accept a job you cannot do. As a professor of political science, he understood the political environment was a dictatorial environment. That was a time in which, you had a decree that says if you are detained by the military for any reason, no court can inquire into it. And even this argument about going to court, the court said this, the court said that. If you look carefully to the NEC law, it says that no court can stop. They always put those provisions where the military want to do something. They say, no, we study anything in the Constitution, that is the portion that they have not suspended, or any other enactment. No court can inquire to XYZ. And you often hear judges say, my hands are tied. Of course, they also use judges when they want to. The fact that he can breach a court order and is not detained shows the limit to which this thing can happen. My concern was this. Having made people to queue and vote, knowing that we are in that military environment, and the whole essence of that exercise was to transit from the military to civil rule. Now you have done everything, and in fairness, even the peaceful nature of the election, because I was old enough to vote. Some of those who were talking yesterday, I'm not sure they were old enough to vote. You had military presence everywhere. Nigerians were unanimous. Look, the worst of a civilian would be better. So however you want to vote, vote, don't fight, don't argue. I was in Kaduna, so Nigerians wanted a peaceful election, and they had one. My point is that time, somebody said to me this evening, or this afternoon, an interview that he had with one young man, I don't know who the guy is, and I'm told it's about 80 years ago, he had that interview, that, they asked him not to proceed. He went to a meeting that he was not invited to, but they allowed him because he was familiar with the villas and all that. My point is, once you were convinced, you have the evidence, you have all the result that somebody has won, Abiola won the election. Announce it. If they are going to execute you, Nigerians will see. In any case, people were executed. People died. I don't know how many, but several people died. Whether we appreciate it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, on a good day, we are all equal before God. I can be a senator, you can be a sweeper. We are all very, very ordinary human beings. And the law does not distinguish between one and the other. So those people who died protesting, and my pain is this, that nobody was able to say the winner of the election because it was not declared. Yet he said he knew he has all the facts for him to pronounce it. If the military were to execute him for doing the job they have given him, he would be the first person to be executed. That is not to say anybody should chase out to be executed. I myself talking to you, I said something. We also had a division within the NSC. I was seen as the one leading the so-called progressive group, while my boss, late President Bafiao, was more on the just manage the situation. And I know the price we paid because of that abortion of June 12th. General Abacha enacted a decree. The only thing he didn't do was to write my name into the formal letters of the decree to prohibit me, deny me the right to contest for the office of the President of Nigeria Labour Congress. I was detained in Apapa. I was arrested by DSS from Akme Road office, taken to a hall where I slept with all the mosquitoes, no light. The following day, they took me to Awolowo Way to be interrogated by Colonel Onuka, or Lieutenant Colonel Onuka, or whatever, something like that. And they brought a prisoner to testify that I was plotting a coup. And I said, with who? And I told the Colonel Onuka, if you want to hug me, I'm already here. Hug me. But you don't need to lie to do so. Because who is going to charge you? Somebody must have courage to do something. The human rights groups, civil society, CLOs, and there were several civil society organizations that were protesting on the street of Lagos and in other parts of the country without minding whether they would be shot. And some were shot. I just told you of a journalist who was jailed, not necessarily on June 12, but for, quote, plotting coup, because he wrote an article that was not considered favorable. Tell magazine, their editor-in-chief and their senior editor, Nome, Whiskey, etc., they are senior editors. He denied because we gave them a floor on Tessa Labour House in Ikeja. They were writing what they were writing. Tempo was there writing the military junta while they are in office. People may show courage. The point I was making yesterday is that after going through that process, which everybody described as free and fair, and then somebody says, don't do it, in clear breach of the decree that they enacted, that set up, that gave him the power to so declare. Nothing that decree says that he shall consult with the armed forces. He should have declared it. Whatever will happen, will happen.
Even with the gun to his head.
Excuse me, anybody, even now, there are levels of courage. There are a lot of people who will say, me, I don't want trouble. Me, I don't want trouble. Even other civilian regime, when I was leading strikes, nationwide strikes in Nigeria, I was arrested, dragged on the floor on the tarmac, Abuja Airport. So if you want to fight under a government, obviously under a military decree, you must be ready for whatever happened. But like we are taught as younger, when I was a much younger union leader, is that, you see, Somonu used to tell us, if you choose to lead people, you must be clear. You tell the truth when it matters. When death comes, it will come. You lie because you want to survive. When death comes, you will still die. But the difference is that if you die speaking the truth, not only will you have a good place in history, but you will go to the kingdom of God. Because God is the ultimate judge. If man failed you, God ultimately, if you are a believer. So I don't think it's about... Now, let me just ask you, Shehu, what will Nwosu be remembered for? That he conducted a free and fair election, but he did not announce the winner, even though he knew the winner. Now you name INEC headquarters after him. What is the message? Each day you see Professor Nwosu house, who see INEC chairman. The INEC chairman, this guy is not here now, but I'm sure every INEC person will face levels of threat, levels of intimidation. I can just imagine that, right? So we've had other INEC people who conducted elections and the results were declared. The one that conducted, I think Gobadia. Then you had Professor Jega, who conducted what many people believe was, given the environment, was a relatively
good election
compared to the one done by Gobadia. These people have not been given national honors. Is it the result that Nigeria did not benefit from? We expected the energy to participate, but we didn't get the fruit. So I thought that when you want to honor people, you honor them because they carry out an exercise.
Well, I mean, I'm worried that the inference and the feeler that got out and the kind of feeling that you got from your colleagues, especially from the Southeast, is as such that, oh, because he's our man, they shut it down. Do you feel bad that is a kind of feeling, and that conversation now became ethnic in some ways?
Yeah, you see, they even put the name of somebody who is dead, a late senator who is no more, as a co-sponsor. That tells you that some people just sit down and take the thing as ethnic. But for me, as Mr. Obama would say, if people want to go low, I would rather go high. The point is that there is nothing ethnic about that election. Nobody ever accused Nwosu that he did what he did because of his place of birth. Even Babangida, he knew that the Northerners voted for Abiola against Tofa. So there was nothing ethnic about the election, and therefore nothing can be ethnic about the person who contested the election. And I think it's because of that one of our colleagues, the civil colleague, reminded us that we have had the opportunity, not necessarily a nice one, you know, when you have to, when people die while in service or even after service, by our culture, and it's even a matter of decency, that you acknowledge and celebrate them and acknowledge the things they accomplished while they were here. But nobody is able to say Professor Nwosu conducted an election that produced Abiola as the president, because he just made that technical point of announcing. As it stands today, you know that we have had those issues in court where results are collated, but unless INEC pronounce the winner, you cannot be declared. Now let you just imagine if you were to contest election. I was to contest election. And remember, there is no slave labor in Nigeria. If you accept the responsibility, you must understand, particularly for a professor of political science, it cannot be assumed that he didn't understand that he was working under a military dictatorship.
I mean, and you don't.
So once you accept the jury,
Senator,
for example, when we organize strike, let me tell you an example. So people who are emergency activists, they will want to downplay history. When I was deputy president of Nigeria Labour Congress, I had an interview I will not forget in a hurry with, your founder, John Momo, who was hosting Tonight at 9. We gave ultimatum that we were going to go on strike, and I was leading the progressive group that we must go on strike over, I think it's about this foreign-related stuff. And the journalist asked me, John Momo asked me, Tonight at 9, I said, Adams, Mr. Oshiomhole, why have you decided to declare war on the nation? I said, no, the president of Nigeria is not equivalent to the Nigerian nation. It is the nation that produced president. It's not president that produced nation. We are defending the right and the social well-being of the Nigerian people against a military government that, in our view, was insensitive and was pursuing an economic policy that would be ruinous to the majority of very ordinary Nigerians. So we must distinguish between the leader and the country. So it takes courage to say that, knowing that he doesn't even need to give instruction. The next DPO or a low military officer can pick me up and take me away. And as I'm speaking, those who know me knew that under Abacha, I was taken to, as I said, Colonel Maker, I was detained underground cell where you don't have light. They even put water inside that cell. And they bring you out once, quote, to go and eat. And it will take you some minutes before you can see. So people are paid their price. And I'm saying, if he had announced the result, well, I mean, I don't know what would have happened to him, but obviously he will not get a kiss.
I don't know whether or not you've read the account of IBB in his book. And perhaps there are those who say Nwosu was vindicated because the ownership that IBB took about the annulment and the manner in which the election went, a lot of people felt, look, Nwosu was vindicated in that account. And again, the account of Professor Nwosu also, there are those who will say he was clear in the environment and the circumstance. Even with the IBB's account, do you feel that some sense of clarity came?
No, the point I'm making is that because he did not complete the exercise, he had all the result in. All you need to say is that, based on this number, I, Professor Nwosu, in accordance with the of the law, hereby declare Abiola as the winner of the election. Whatever the military choose to do later, they can still overthrow Abiola as they did to previous elected governments. Or that body will be on their head. But you see that nobody was able to say the winner of the election. Sometimes, some section of the media will say the presumed winner. Others will say the widely believed as the winner. Those for me are the issues.
And that was even the contention, don't forget. The contention about Abiola and how he became someone that is now was wanted. If you remember what happened right in Lagos, when he declared by himself that he won the election, he then got into trouble with the military junta.
That is the point I'm making. Now, I was one of those, because we wanted to go on strike. Some other people wanted us to negotiate, etc. So we went to meet the then, now late head of state, General Abacha, and said, what is Abiola's offense? It's bad enough to have denied him the fruit of his election. But to now further put him in prison is taking the provocation too far. And General Abacha's report was simple. As far as he knows, Abiola was never declared the winner of the election. But Abiola went to somewhere in Lagos and proclaimed himself. And proclaimed himself as the winner. That for him is treason, according to Abacha. And once he has proclaimed himself as the winner and therefore president, then for him that was the limit. So he had to put him away. Then he asked me, can you now just wake up tomorrow and say you are now the president of NLC? Because that time I was the president, I was deputy president. So Adam, will you go and declare yourself president of NLC for whatever reason you have, and your president, Pascal Bafia, will just be watching? I can't be here and somebody says he's president. Who elected him? And he said, oh, Abiola has to do an apology. Apology for something that he won. But you see, this was convenient for General Abacha to say, if Nwosu had said, Professor Nwosu had declared Abiola won the election, then he would be able to, Abiola would have needed to go to say, I am the winner.
For someone like you,
declared,
who was a witness, you were a character, you were enlisted in those who are in the front line, in that struggle at the time. Do you find the admission of General Babangida and some of the apologies, perhaps, that in code that he is giving in his book and on that book launch, tenable?
Well, these are issues I would rather prefer not to discuss, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, Abiola died for the very fact that Nigerians wanted him to lead them and resolved that he should lead them. Anybody who play a role in it, including General Babangida, I have said so in some other interviews, that. And even in another meeting where we went to meeting, we told him, have you organized election up to the presidency? Why would you just do the next step of declaring the winner? Or allow the next people to declare the winner, complete the story? So, well, for believers, you apologize for two things. You apologize and make amends where it is possible so to do. In this case, his apology was not enough to bring Abiola back to life. And even more painful is that Abiola died in this process. If Abiola was still alive, but merely was denied the right to govern, you know, it would not be as painful as it is that the man died pursuing a mandate. He had to, now my pain is this, he had to proclaim himself as the winner, which Nwosu was going to do. If Abiola can have the courage, Abiola was not a militant. He was not a militant. He wasn't a professor of political science. He was basically a businessman. But he had enough courage to say, I won this election. Somebody else who has a background of political science and all that, in my opinion, my humble opinion, ought to be able to do even better than that. Now, in the end, they detained Abiola. They didn't shot him. And the basis, as I said, is that Abacha claim, of course, everybody knows better than that. Abiola declared himself. So Nwosu had declared him, in my opinion, heaven will not fall.
So
what might happen at best, is that they detain him.
Actually, there was a Gubadia.
And how do you now detain him? Because he has followed the law enacted by the military. And as he himself acknowledged in one interview I watched, that the military was divided. Okay, if it was divided, take advantage of the division and proclaim. But I say, I mean, let's not focus. I don't believe that when you fail to complete an assignment and sign off, you have written a beautiful letter, but it has no weight unless you sign, and you decline to sign it. And there's somebody telling me that the letter is so beautifully worded, it was so nice, choice of word, everything beautiful, but unsigned. What is the value? Now, as for Babagida's confession, I think he just, in my opinion, I'm a Catholic. The Bible tells us that whatever sin you commit, if you admit to the sin and pray for forgiveness, that maybe God might forgive you. I think it is perhaps in this sense that former President Babangida made that disclosure, you know. But it's now in the hands of God whether he accepts his apology, because Abiola is not here to say, I accept your apology. He's gone. So it's a matter now for the ultimate judge to decide, which is God.
We're going to break.
It's not for me to evaluate whether he's If Abiola was alive, he would be better placed to say, I accept the apology. But Abiola is dead. Death arising from an action. He claimed life. That is the most precious. The Bible tells us that nobody has a right to take life. Abiola's life was taken. Again, in a very controversial manner. Senator, so I cannot speak for Abiola because I don't think anybody can speak for him. When you apologize to me, although it was not just an injury to Abiola, it was an injury to the Nigeria people. There was a lead story in Punch newspaper where I said at that time that it's unacceptable for the then president, Babangida as he then was, and Professor Nwosu's neck to fool 18 million Nigerians who queue to vote peacefully across the country. I had courage to say that. I don't have any bodyguard, I don't have any evil dog in my house, but I said that. Because I asked myself, what will happen? The worst that can happen is I'm taken away, and I will not be the first person.
Senator, we are due for a break. It was Gubadia, Maurice Iwu, Jega, then we have Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. But there's a lot of lessons to be learned in all of this. The fundamental is that anything anyone is doing presently will go into history, and that's why we're talking about Professor Humphrey Nwosu. But we'll be back, everyone, because former President Olusegun Obasanjo has been assessing Nigeria's democracy. But, of course, you do know that Senator Oshiomhole has strong views about our democracy, especially someone who has been a Labour leader and an APC leader also. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. History in a country where history lessons have been scrapped from our curriculum. How do people even know? I mean, anyone born in the last 20 years, I'm not sure of the kind of history of this country they know. And that's why sometimes when you go on Twitter and you see anyone who is not of my own generation, we are even lucky. I did a bit of history in secondary school as part of our curriculum, and it's not in the curriculum any longer, unless we heard now that it's going to be reintroduced. But the question is that some of the issues that we are been talking about, the story of the Civil War of Nigeria, there's been so many accounts, distorted facts and all of that, and when you see younger Nigerians between the age of 18 and 30 arguing about Nigeria, it tells you of how shallow their understanding about this country is. There are so many things that needs to be taught about Nigeria's history, and that's why Professor Humphrey Nwosu's situation was particularly interesting. And I'd like us to quickly wrap it up and move into Nigeria under the Tinubu government and our democracy, because that has been critically analyzed. But Senator, to wrap this up, there are a lot of people who pay the ultimate price in the fight. Even the present president was in exile alongside so many people. But there are those who will tell you. And I remember Taraba resort particularly had not come in. The full result had not even, the full picture had not even been known, hasn't been tabulated. So it was difficult for Humphrey Nwosu to have being able to report the result. And there were a lot of issues. But then, what is the biggest lesson
now
that you think that we can take away?
There's something you need to correct. In one interview somebody forwarded to me today, someone who said he had, even though they were waiting to collate those results, he had the result. And he said it was clear that,
Abiola had won.
That Abiola had won. He said that much. So my point is, if it was clear that Abiola had won, and that he was telling the military, why don't you call Abiola and Tofa together to reconcile them? Is that the work of INEC? He should have gone ahead and do the job that he has accepted. No one should take a job, like I said yesterday, when you are not ready to die for something, which is the problem of the average Nigerian. Oh, I know what trouble is. But trouble will consume you. And in avoiding small fight, you plug yourself into a more serious fight. What could have been a two-fight, it can become a basis for war because you didn't manage it well. Don't forget, one of Abiola's wife, Kudirat Abiola, a woman, she insisted that her husband won this election. They killed her. Yeah. But they didn't kill the idea.
Assassinated.
Yeah.
And the children were literally, and the lives of those children have not remained the same.
Fine. But those who killed her, do you know what their life is? So my point is that, please don't take a job that you don't have the courage to do when it matters. I have faced challenging situation. Yeah. So the lesson to be learned from this is that, please don't take a job you are not sure you have what it takes to carry it to conclusion. Because life is not a superhighway. If you take a job under a military government, you must understand the nature of the military and do the job as prescribed by a decree. The decree had not been amended. So all the going forth and back, having meeting here, all those were extra-legal meetings, not in the law. You should have proceeded. And remember, and I think Nigeria should, this is important. There was, before Humphrey Nwosu, which raised another issue of suspicion, there was Professor Emiawa, who was first appointed by President Babangida, as he then was, to head the Electoral Commission. They wanted Professor Emiawa to do certain things, and then Emiawa said, no, he can't do those things. You can take the job, but he can't do those things. And they took the job from him. He resigned. Right, so for me, that is principle. I'm not sure if he's still alive now. He was, at the point, director of studies at NIPS or something. But he will be remembered as a man who had the gut to say, no, this is the law. I'm not going to do anything outside this law. My own privileges as chairman or his responsibility as chairman, he will not mortgage them to anybody external to NEC.
Senator,
and he lost the job.
Yeah, Senator Oshiomhole, big lesson there. Perhaps like anyone who is in this government today, and one of the big lessons that I see is the lack of education and distorted fact of our history. President Bola Tinubu, if you are watching tonight, and the Minister of Education, Mr. Alausa, it is important that at every aspect of our education, from primary level to secondary to the university, history must be taught.
Absolutely.
History must be taught. It is a disservice to our nation.
The most irresponsible decision that any Nigerian government would have ever taken, to abolish teaching history. For me, no crime can be worse than that. If you don't know your history,
you don't know where
if you don't know your past, how can you imagine what your future can be? So I really don't understand. I think some people who may have played dirty role in history, use their office to, they don't want it to be documented, because even if they prevent certain narration, as seen by historians, while they are in office, when they are no more in office, the truth will come out. Like in the case of Abiola now. Now people started talking, okay, I apologize, but Abiola is dead. But Nigeria lives with that sky. Many lives were lost. Now, this is the point I'm making. Because one man was afraid of his life, He created a situation that led to many lives being lost.
Senator Oshiomhole, let me quickly remind our viewers of what happened earlier this week. There was a colloquium in honor of a former deputy speaker who once also governed Imo State. And in that colloquium was the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, speaking about democracy of today Nigeria. And also we heard Mr. Peter Obi also heard his views about democracy under the Bola Tinubu government. Let me refresh your memory about what was said.
Democracy is meant to be a system of government that delivers, and delivers to all the people, not just a section of the people, not just a few. But what do we have today? I believe since we gone past the Greek democracy, which brought everybody to the square, and everybody has a say in the decision making, which affects everybody, or which affected everybody. Democracy has now become representative democracy. And representative democracy has not taken care of everybody. Today we have democracy, which is government of the people, of small number of people, by a small number of people, over large number of people.
All right. I wish that we have the account of Mr. Peter Obi on that particular. It was quite interesting how Peter Obi also describe, especially what we see presently. Let me allow you to listen to what Peter Obi said.
Past 3 years, conducted election have less than 30% of registered voters participate in the election, and they held it. Everyone was go and check from South Africa to Mexico to Indonesia. They were not less than 60%. Nigeria was 23% of registered voters. In that 23%, Nigeria is the only country where you can be declared a winner without receiving 50% plus one of the votes. Our own was 37%. And there's no proportional representation, which is why you can have opposition here. Because if you had that, what is said wouldn't have happened. Because the person there now have 37% of the vote, call it 40. In the Senate would have had 44 members. PDP, with their leader, would have had about 34 members, and Labour would have had 24. In fact, we should have actually formed government. You cannot have a minority person sitting in government with everything, chasing everybody out, destroying everything. We must change it and have proportional representation so that the people want to listen. That is how it works.
All right, Senator Oshiomhole, you heard there are growing concern about the manner in which things are run under this government, and there are those who think or who are describing and saying our democracy is under threat under the Tinubu government, and they'll give you several reasons. In fact, there is a current 30 days rant challenge about the state of the nation, about the rant. I mean, those who are complaining and talking about the state of the economy. There seems to be a group of Nigerians who feel aggrieved about the manner in which things are run, especially when you hear how our democracy is being described. Let me get your view.
It's okay. First, you know, President Obasanjo is somebody I respect very much, but you also know that I know a couple of things about him that other Nigerians don't know.
Like what?
When he conspired with, I believe, who was the Senate president there now? It was an electoral act where they agreed that they doctored an act that was passed by the National Assembly and changed one or two words to give it a different meaning, including a provision that if a candidate dies, INEC can postpone election indefinitely. So people say they should put 6 months, say no, subject to the discretion of INEC. And that INEC who was the chairman of NEDATA, Iwu,
Professor Maurice Iwu.
Yeah. I went to President Obasanjo as president of NLC, and I said, sir, you will not be able to fix all of Nigeria problems. No what government can. But there's something you can do. I believe you should commit yourself to laying a solid political substructure on which a future democracy will be built. But if you start playing with the foundation, I fear for the future. And they say, no, Adam, trust me, I will not do X, Y, Z. I say, that is the problem. The future is not about you. You will not be the last president. You may be the first one since 1999, but certainly you will be the last. So we must create a situation in which, regardless of who comes in, the system will tame the person. He failed on that. And Nigerians fail to acknowledge this thing about President Obasanjo's alleged third term bid, sharing money to legislatures. I was at Obasanjo's 80th birthday when he told Bukola Saraki, when Saraki said that he thanked God that Obasanjo removed it the way he did. Otherwise, he would have got to Kwara State to contest and become governor, and now subsequently Senate president. President Obasanjo said to him on the occasion of his 80th birthday in Lagos that when he was president, he said to Bukola, nobody can become governor in Nigeria unless I agree. He said, I only allow you, you are not the only one, I also allow Ogusoye, also the governor of Olagusoye. See, because having retired him prematurely because he was already politically exposed, he just compensated him, asked him to go to Oshua, be governor there. A man who allocated governorship, he doesn't have any moral basis to sermonize about democracy. And when they behave like that in office, they forget that one day they will be there. Now, my dear friend Peter Obi knows that I have personal respect for him. When I was governor, I invited him, and he honored me by coming to Edo to commission some of the red roof schools we were building to restore some integrity to basic education. However, I heard him now talking about the number of people who vote in an election. Now, Shehu Google, how many people voted in Anambra that made my dear friend Peter Obi to become the governor of Anambra State? We're talking about Nigeria voting population being 30%, 25%, or whatever. Is this still governed by opinion, or are they governed by express provision, either in the Nigeria Constitution or subsequent enactment by the National Assembly? Elections are conducted based on. Now, let me even ask you, is it possible for two people to win an election? Obi went to court, say he won the election. I think we went to court, say he won the election. One of them must be lying, ab initio. Can two people validly win one election that require one person? And so when you parade people who have bitterness, here is President Obasanjo, who, because the Lagos State governor, now president, decided to create local governments and argued that local government should be autonomous. President Obasanjo withheld the allocation to Lagos State for all of his tenure. And even after Supreme Court ordered him to release the money, he refused. It's on history. He took his exit from office, which he conducted under a policy of do or die politics. It's a record, video and print, that God-fearing President Yar'Adua is it's just unfortunate that each time you have a guy who have a heart of gold to bail us out, something happened. Just like what happened to Abiola. Yar'Adua, after 2 years, he died. It was Yar'Adua who released the money that to Lagos State government, because Obasanjo was determined to cripple Lagos.
Because we have less than 60 seconds.
Talking about
the question that I'm going this present government,
because
they worry about how we are. There are those who believe that we are drifting, Senator.
How many people did President Obasanjo impeached? He declared state of emergency in Jos. Remember what he did in Bayelsa. Remember I think one other governor in Oyo, all of which were overturned by courts of law. So if a man has this kind of record, how do you put him on television and ask me to comment on his record? He's just frustrated. I think what I was warning him that he would not be the last president. Now, some of the things he later, How did he took over and reduce Nigeria to a war party state? I was the unofficial opposition. On October 4th, 2004, I'm not sure of the date, about that time, President Obasanjo did a broadcast accusing me of treason and that I'm parading myself like alternate president, running a parallel government called Nigeria Labour Congress, and that he will no longer tolerate it in national broadcast. What was my offense? Because I took advantage of the trade union laws to question some of his economic policies and to issue a strike notice and to pursue that strike to compel him to revise some of the...
We're totally out of time, Senator. We're totally, I mean, I was worried. Unfortunately, you were not able to touch on how some Nigerians perceive that we're drifting under this present government.
No, we're not.
That's our democracy.
We're not drifting. We're not drifting.
The Rivers case...
point is that... No, don't talk about Rivers. That's why I told you now.
We do not have the time. No, let us go
for your state. Without talking about Plateau State.
We're totally out of time.
Bayelsa State.
Senator Oshiomhole.
So Nigeria is not drifting. Let it be on record. There are challenges.
Yeah.
And there are no quick fix solutions.
Thank you so much.
When you carry out surgery, it requires time for the patient to heal and to regain strength. Nigeria will heal and be back on the field under President Tinubu. I'm confident about that.
Senator Adams Oshiomhole, thank you so much indeed for your time. As always, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Whereas the SDP at the national level has disowned the statement coming from the Kaduna branch of the SDP, saying that El-Rufai has not joined the SDP. That's how we can go, how far we can go on the program tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I'm Oshiomhole. God bless Nigeria.